Hello there everyone. Today I want to show you how to do these heart-shaped Kumihimo earrings. And this is what they look like. So you have the heart shape with the Kumihimo braid, and I just added a little dangle at the bottom to give it a bit of something extra, a little bit of sparkle. And just added it to an earring finding. And I just used some metallic effect cord in two different colours, like a dark pink and a light pink, to make it Valentine's like. But you can obviously use whatever you want to use. So if you want to learn how to make these, then keep watching. And these are the things that we're going to need. Now first off, you'll need to use your round Kumihimo disc for this, because we'll be making a round braid. And then the cord that I'm going to be using is this. Now this is just a cord that's got kind of like a metallic finish to it. I just thought that would give a really nice look. But you can really use any cord at all. And the thickness as well, you can use many different kinds of thicknesses of the cord as well. That will just help determine how thick your braid is going to be at the end. And the colours that I'm going to be using is just a dark pink and then a lighter pink. And I'm just using the two colours. You can obviously choose whatever you want colour wise. And also you can just use one or even more colours, that's up to you. But I'm just going to be working with these two. And we're also going to need some wire. And this is just a 1mm wire that I'm using here. You can use some other thicknesses. You just got to make sure that it's a fairly strong wire so it can hold its shape. Because what we'll be doing with this is we're going to be putting this through the core of the braid that we're making, so through the centre of the Kumihimo braid, and that's going to be how we're going to be able to shape it into that heart shape at the end. And then here I have two beads, so we just need two in total, so that's one for each earring, and it's just to add a drop at the end on the bottom of it. And these are just clear bicones, but you can obviously use whatever you want to. And these I just thought would add a bit of a nice sparkle to the piece at the end. And then to be able to add those beads, I'm just going to be using some flat top headpins here. So we're just going to use those to add the beads onto the piece at the end. And then finally, you just need some earring findings and some jump rings. I just have a selection of jump rings here and then the earring findings I'm going to use. But you can obviously use whatever you want to use. So get all your materials together and then let's get started. So the first thing that we need to do to start our work is we need to cut our cords. And what I'm going to do is we need 4 lengths of cord, because it's a basic 8-strand braid, but we're going to be doubling them over, so we're going to end up with 8 working strands. And the lengths of these are 80 centimeters long. And in this case, because I'm using 2 different colours, I just have 2 lengths of each colour. And then you also need to cut a length of your wire, and this is just about 20 centimeters long, because we don't need that much, as it's just a little piece that we're going to be doing for each hat. So now what we need to do is we need to combine these two things so we can add it to the disc and then start doing the braid. So we have a piece of wire ready, and then I'm going to take my cords and then make sure on one end, or both ends really, that they're kind of about the same level, and then take hold of it like this, both ends, so they kind of meet each other at the end here, because that way we find roughly the middle up here. So I'm going to keep hold of that. And then we need to add that to the wire, and to do that I'm just going to kind of hold it around like this and then just make a simple overhand knot with all the lengths together like that, and then tighten it around your piece of wire and just tighten it nice and tight like that. And obviously your wire can be pushed through like that, but it will hold. It's not just going to fall out by itself. So there we now have all the cords attached to the wire. So we now need to set this up on the disc. So to do that, we have a piece of wire here with the cord on, and you just need to make sure to attach your cord a little bit up so you have a tail left on your wire, basically sticking out from your cord. Just a few, maybe 5 centimeters or so, or a bit more. That'll be fine. And then what we're going to do with that tail is push it down through the center of the disc, and then we just need to distribute the cords onto the disc. And because I'm using 2 colours, I'm going to take my dark pink around the top dot here, so we're just working with the dots, don't worry about the numbers, and then the light pink to the side dot, and then with the other cords we just need to do the exact opposite. So the dark ones are at the top, so we need the other 2 dark ones to go at the bottom, like that. And then the last 2, which are the light ones, go to the opposite side of the first ones, like so. And you can just adjust it so your piece and your wire sits in the middle, like that. And that's now set up on our disc. And right at the beginning your wire kind of wobbles a bit like that, but don't worry too much about that. And don't worry if your wire's your tail's gotten longer or something, because you can push the wire through one way or the other. So now what we need to do is start working the braid. So what I just do is, with the tail of the wire that I have sticking out of the back, I just kind of hold my fingers on there just to kind of keep the wire steady, at least in the beginning while I'm working with it, just until the braid itself is enough to hold the wire in place. So what I'm going to do is just a basic 8-strand braid. So I take my top left one and down, and then stay on the outside of the wire, because that's the core of the braid. So we need to braid around the wire, then put it to the bottom left, and then the bottom pair, take the right one, go around your wire and stay on the right side of the top. Then turn your disc. So it's just like a basic 8-strand braid, you just have that core in the middle. And the only thing different you need to remember is when you release a cord, you have to go around that wire. Because that way, as you're building your braid, basically the braid is going to build around the wire, and you won't be able to see the wire because the braid will be covering it. It's just going to be there for the stability, and so we can shape it at the end. So you just keep going like this. Your basic 8-strand braid. Around your core wire here. So I've now continued braiding until I've got the length of braid that I need for my hat. And what I'm going to do now is finish off this end so we can take it off the board and then actually create the hat shape. Now the top pair and the bottom pair here, that's the last set that I did on my Kumihimo braid. What I need to do now is I'm going to grab 2 opposite cords, not from the last pair that I did, but from the ones that I haven't done last. So these two are very opposite each other, and what I'm going to do is bring them across the middle like this and tie a regular overhand knot, but stay on this side of the core wire where they were on the disc. So tie the knot all the way down so the knot sits on top of your braid basically, but on that side of the wire where your cords are coming from, and then take the other 2 from the same pairings, the ones that are on the other side of the wire. Want to do the same thing, bring them across the middle, tie an overhand knot, and stay on this side of the wire, and then tighten that knot on this side of the wire. And just put my cords back in the slot just to keep them out of the way for now while I finish off these knots. And then we'll move to the other pair that we haven't done yet. Do the same thing, so the ones on this side of the wire, bring across the middle, tighten that knot on top of the others, stay on that same side of the wire. So your wire is still coming out from the middle, and the last 2, regular overhand knot, making sure you tighten on the opposite side of the wire, like that. And now we can take this off the board. So releasing all our cords, and then we have our finished braid here onto the wire. So now what we need to do is just get rid of these excess ends of cord. To do that, what I'm going to use is some glue, and I really like using this glue for this because first of all it dries clear, so you won't be able to see it when it dries, and also it's really strong, so it'll hold it in place. But the best thing about it is that it has this very fine nozzle tip to it, so you can really get the glue right in where you want it to and do precision gluing. And we really want that on this piece because we don't want too much so it spills out, because this end will kind of be visible on the piece, and that's also why it's good that it dries clear. But I'm just going to take my glue and then put it around the ends of my cord here where I've tied all the knots, making sure I kind of get in between, so not just right where the cords are coming out, but kind of get it in there in the braid, and also a bit on top to make sure that the all the knots stay in place, because we want to make sure that these are secure so we can cut them off without it coming undone. So just put a bit of glue around here and then let it dry and then cut off the excess. So I've now let the glue dry, so I'm just going to get my scissor, and then what you want to do is just, I kind of hold tension, so I put my scissor with my cords in between and then I pull the cords a little bit just to get the tension there, so I can get as close to my piece as possible with the scissor without actually cutting into my piece. And you just want to do that with all of them, and that way we've finished off the ends nice and neatly but still secure, like so. And then there's your finished end, as you can see, nice and neat. So now both ends are pretty similar, and we now here have a finished braid with the core wire running through the centre. So what I recommend that you do is that you make your two pieces of braid like this, side by side, so one first and then you make the other one before you start on with the next step. So that way you ensure it's more likely that they're going to be the same length, because if you want both earrings to be the same size of the hat, you need the braid, this part that's on your wire, that needs to be the same length, because it's the length of this that will determine how large your hat is going to be. And this length of the size that I'm going to be doing, I've made the braid 12 centimeters long. But obviously you can choose to make it longer or shorter if you want a smaller or bigger hat, that's up to you. But this is what I'm going to be doing. So now we want to start shaping this piece into the hat. And to do that, I'm going to get some pliers out. You can either use chain nose or flat nose, they'll work the same. And I'm going to use this just because the cleft of the hat, I want that to be as sharp as possible. And it's more easy to get that with pliers instead of just using your fingers. So what we want to do with this is we want to grab it right in the centre of our braid, so right in the middle. Now you can either judge that by eye or you can measure it, because I know it's 12 centimeters long, so where it's 6 centimeters is where the middle of my braid is. So that's where I'm going to grab it with my pliers, like so. So the middle is right on this side of my pliers, and what I'm going to do is just bend it, grab hold of it nicely, and then just use your fingers as leverage, and then bend it like this, so you get a nice angle on it, like so. Because you have that wire inside, that's why we're working with the pliers, and that's also what's going to help keep the shape. So this is the start of the hat, and obviously you can just adjust it until you're happy, and then we want to start making the rest of the hat. So for this I'm just going to use my fingers, because we just need some rounded edges and curves on it. So you just take one side at a time, bend it around, so the end of your braid here comes back down right below that bend we made at first. And then the other side, just get that nice curve on it until your ends meet down here, both of them. And then you can just take your time adjusting it until you're completely happy with the shape, until it's nice and even. And of course I recommend that you do this as well. You have both of your braids made ready, so you can do these at the same time as well. So you make one first and then you make the other one, and that way you also can use the first one you've made to measure the hat on the second one. So I'm going to use the one I've already made and measure my new one against that, because that way you ensure that they become, if not completely alike, at least similar enough so that it's a pair of earrings. So that is actually pretty good, that. Like so. So they're meeting at the bottom here, so now all we need to do is secure it in place so the shape is a nice and secure hat. So to do that, again I'm going to take my either flat nose or chain nose pliers, and then we need to do a bit of a wrap down here so they stay in place. But what you might find is that one length of your wire, so the one tail, is a bit longer than the other one. And what I just recommend doing is that the one we bend first, so this is the one I'm showing you now, grab it right where it's coming out from the braid. So this one I'm going to do the longest tail I have left, and then bend it back so it comes up at an angle like this, so kind of straight down from the hat. Like that. And that's my longest piece, because what we're going to be doing with this is a wrapped loop, so we can add a bead at the end. And then the other one is coming across it. And what I just like to do is give it just a little kink back, like that, just a slight angle, because then when it meets with the other wire, instead of overlapping too much, the two ends of your braid sit next to each other. And then I'm just going to do a couple of wraps here, nice and tight wraps. So the short end that I'm wrapping now around the long one. And this is basically just to secure the hat in place. I'm just going to be doing 2 or 3 wraps, and that's going to be plenty secure. And I like my wraps to be nice and neat and close together, like that. And then what you want to do is the rest of that tail, get some wire cutters or some flush cutters. I'm just using some flush cutters in this case. Cut off the rest of it. And then I always just use my pliers to squeeze down the very end so it's not sticking out from the piece, but it's getting laid flush in, so you can't feel it or anything if you put your finger over it. So that is basically the hat in place now. And obviously if your hat goes out of shape while you're doing this, you can always just put it back into shape when you're done. So now what I'm going to do is make the little wrap loop on the bottom so we can add a bead into it. And again, I'm just going to take my chain nose pliers, and then it really depends how you want your loop to sit. If you want your loop to sit this way, so the opposite way of the hat, I bend my wire towards one of the front or the back of the hat, whichever. Obviously you can make the loop sit the other way, that's up to you. But I bend it back at an angle like this, making sure I have just a little bit of space below that bend of the bare wire before I start bending it. And then you can get some, these are some 6-step bell making pliers that I'm using. You can also easily just use some plain round nose pliers and just choose whatever size you want your loop to be. So I'll place them right on that bend, and then I bend my wire back around them. Again, you'll be doing the exact same thing if you're using round nose pliers. This is just so you make sure that every loop you make is going to end up being the same size. And then bend it back like this, so you have a circle. And then what we need to do now is make a wrap loop so it stays in place. And to do that, again I'm going to grab my chain nose pliers. I like using these for this because I put them on my loop like that, so I keep hold of my whole piece with my pliers, and I also ensure this way that my loop doesn't, the size or the shape of my loop doesn't change as I'm doing this. We just take the tail that we have left from doing that loop, wrap it around that space that we left to create this wrap loop. And if you can't get it quite tight, you can always use your pliers to help you. Just kind of squeeze the wire in place. And then you just keep wrapping around here until you run out of space. So the wrap from the other side meets up with it. Like so. And again, just going to take my cutters, cut off the excess, like so. And then just like before, just take your chain nose pliers or something, what you're using, and just push down that very end so it's not sticking out and can end up catching or scratching on anything. You want to make sure that you don't have anything like that, so you can actually wear the piece. So that's the finished hat with a loop on the bottom. So now we just need to make that little wrap loop with a bead on to attach to the bottom. So this is where you get whatever bead you're using out that you want to add to the bottom, and then just a flat top head pin like this. And all I want to do is put the bead on that head pin right to the bottom, and then grab my chain nose pliers and basically do the same thing we were just doing. Want to do a wrap loop, so we want to leave a little bit of space there between the bead and the pliers so we can wrap around, bend it back at an angle like that, so it looks like this. grab your pliers again, your round nose pliers if that's what you're using. Again, I'm going to be using the 6-step bell making pliers, so I know this loop is going to be the same size as all the others, but you can just as easily use your round nose pliers if you don't have these. Bend it back on itself, around the pliers, and then back around the side like this. So again, you have a circle. And then before we do the wrap on this, we need to attach it to the piece. So you can just open it up slightly and then slide your hat onto that. So the loop that you just made on your hat, slide that loop onto the loop that you're making now, like that. Then grab this loop with your pliers again. That's where chain nose pliers are really good for grabbing, because if you're using flat nose pliers there won't be enough space to grab onto the loop because the other loop will be in the way. And then you just take the tail of your head pin and wrap it around that space, filling it up, just the same principle as we did before, until you run out of space, like so. And the same thing again. Get your cutters, cut off the excess tail of your wire or your head pin, and just as finishing touch, go in with your chain nose pliers and just press that end down, like so, and then just run your finger over it so there's nothing there you can feel. And then that's the loop with a bead attached to your hat. So it's almost done now. All we need to do is just be able to have something we can attach it to the earring finding. So that is the next step. Now what I want to do is, you can have your hat hanging however you want. I want to have my hat hanging from the center, so right from this center point that we made. And to do that, what I need is to attach my jump rings in there. Obviously you can see you have the braid and all that, so it might be a little bit difficult to get a jump ring in there. That's why I got a piece of scrap wire here, and this is just the same 1 mil. It's just got to be strong enough for you to work with and get through. And I'm going to use this first as a kind of a tool to kind of go in and come through my braid with this, to make a bit of an opening ready for my jump ring to go through. And it just makes it easier to get your jump ring in there. So like this, right in the center, and then just make sure that the opening is there using your wire. And then you can take your jump ring, and you want to open it up first if it's not open already. Just open it up a decent amount, obviously not too much so you kind of damage the shape, but just a decent amount so you have the space in the jump ring to get in there. And then you just want to work that jump ring in through the braid where you had the wire, and it can take a bit of maneuvering, but it will work, especially because you already created that space with the wire. And just take your time, and there you go, came through. And then all you do is close up the jump ring, and that's your first jump ring attached. And then it's easy just to attach the rest. Now if you find this a little bit too fiddly or tricky, you can't really get it in, what you also could do is attach your jump ring right from the beginning when you've made your braid, before you actually shape the hat, and just put your jump ring right in the center if you measure your braid, and then go from the jump ring and then shape your hat. So that's another option, but otherwise you just use that one jump ring then you just put on, and then attach some more jump rings onto that, just one at a time. And just building it up, and it really depends how long you want it. It's the second one, and you just keep adding some more. So you can use 3 or 4 or 5, it's really up to you how long you want it hanging down. And it's the same way you then add in your earring finding as well. The last jump ring that you use, you just attach that to your earring finding, like this, or whatever findings that you're using. So I've finished adding all the jump rings, and I've ended up using 4 jump rings on each, because I thought that would be a nice length for it to hang from the ear and dangle nicely. So these are the finished earrings, and obviously they'll be perfect for Valentine's. But otherwise, this is the finished design and how to do them. So I really hope that you enjoyed this tutorial, and thank you very much for watching. Hello there everyone. Today I want to show you how to make this Kumihimo braid with a cupcake pattern on it. And this is what it looks like. So you got your cupcakes going around your braid. You can obviously choose whatever colours you want, but this is what it's going to look like. So if you want to learn how to do that, then keep watching. And the things you're going to need for this braid